Hey, good morning, everybody. It's the Big Drum Bear Podcast. I know what I did. I've got to put a note or something next to my computer anytime that I do that. Okay, abbreviated intro, right? Let's go back and get it right. I'm sure you can all hear me now. So I have this little mixer board. It's a tiny USB mixer board. Some of you have seen it. And if I unplug it, right, if I take my computer and I go somewhere with it, like I did last night, then OBS, if it is still open at the time that I do that, will reset to the default, just whatever the natural settings are, where I don't have any stuff plugged into it. I don't have any mics set up or anything like that. It doesn't read the mixer board automatically. So I have to go in and manually set the mixer board back to that setting for the sound. And as soon as I flip over to that one, it takes all of like 5 seconds, boom, I'm ready to go. But somehow I'm a master, I don't know what word to use here, special. And I totally missed it yet again. So you get fun, confusing introductions where you don't hear a thing. Always a blessing, right? Well, it's great to be with you here again on this Tuesday, December 5th, I believe we are at. No, 4th, excuse me. December 4th, 2018. Boy, that's funny. You know, it's funny now that I did that. I'm thinking, I was watching a stream for Big Bear the other day. I am fairly special, it's true. A big purple dinosaur would even agree with you. I was watching an Owen stream after it had happened later in the day, because I was busy all day yesterday helping my wife out with stuff, walking dogs. And I probably got about 10-20 minutes into the stream, maybe less than that, and it went black. I don't know if anybody else saw that. The whole stream went black, and I don't know if it was just on my end or what, but it was an hour 40-minute stream, and only the first like 15 or so minutes was there any content. And then the camera, the mics, everything went off. And it was just black. And I guarantee that Owen is probably pissed as heck about that crap. He's like, gosh dang it, you know, spiraling over seeing the video once it uploaded. I wonder if he even knows. I wonder if he's even aware of it. I hope somebody clued him into the fact that that happened. But it's like, what are you going to do now? You know, he's already done the show. I think my kitten was jumping around upstairs somewhere, freaking the dogs out. But, yes, Owen, I feel your pain. Big Drum Bear identifies with your frustrations with OBS. And it's really not OBS's fault. It's our fault most of the time because we're not paying attention to our tech, right? I think that kind of ties into what I'm talking about today. What I talked about yesterday was being specific in what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to be specific. That's being dumb. In what we're trying to accomplish, right? Being specific in recognizing your failings, right? When you have thoughts, words, or deeds that are not satisfactory, when they are beneath you, when they are wrong, if you can say, I was wrong here, or that I didn't cut it here, I'd be real specific on what you did instead of using like fluffy language. Like, you know, I've often done like, well, I guess I just let y'all down. You know, that's pretty wrong there. I don't, you know, I'm trying to see now. I can't think of the non-specific language. It's not flowing to my mind. I know at times when I did something that I shouldn't have, you know, I've tried to be as non-specific about it as possible, you know, because I'm very, very ashamed. And so I try to hope that if I just say, yeah, I did a general wrong or something like that and don't get too specific, that nobody would get too mad at me, you know. But when I get very specific about where I went wrong, even if it's just like something in thought that I did, you know, and it sort of affected the way I talked or I acted, even just in a subtle way, I want to call that out specific and say, this is where I deviated from what I know better than doing. And this is the result I see it having or could have had. So when I can identify exactly where my error was and be willing to call it an error, I can then improve on it. Oh, I'm not plugged in. Crud. I'm about to lose my battery if I don't plug in the computer. That was an oversight. Come on, come on. Don't die. Please don't die, because then I'll have no live stream. No live stream is not good. Come on, you need a live stream. Come on, live stream. Plug it in. Plug it in. It's like those Glade plugins from back in the day. We got it? We're good? Oh, get down to 4%. I was like, racing against the clock. That's two. That's two. Oh. So when you're doing this stuff all on your own, you can you can be pretty special at not. See, that's just not very specific language, right? I mean, you all know what I'm saying. I'm just sort of turning it into a joke, but no, I should have done that beforehand, right? I should have made sure. And what I need to do tomorrow is have a list. See, not only did I identify it specifically, but here's the next step. What's your process for solution? I need to make a list that details the things that I better do before I start. Did you plug the computer in if you took it out? Did you turn on OBS? Did you set up iTunes so that you get your intro music ready? Did you set the sound source properly in OBS? Do you have your slides ready? All that kind of stuff. And just stick it right here on the computer. So that's what needs to happen. You make a plan, you see it through, you detail it, right? So that's kind of the other side of that I wanted to get at today. Practice as a musician, right, is a good metaphor for a lot of this stuff, or it's a good way to see through what it is we're trying to get at on a larger scale. So there's this exercise that I was taught several years ago by a great drummer, a great teacher named Jason Heupel, and he was one of the teaching aides when I was in high school to Dr. Walter Parks, who was our percussion director, teacher over at my high school. And my first year in marching band, I was in the pit, the keyboard, percussion, the timpani, all the other stuff that wouldn't be on the field. It was at the front of the field, you know, providing a lot of other important sound. So still, Gita, she's barking about kitten probably. Still, at that time, for those that don't know, that's my dog, one of my three. Back at that time, all of us had to go through the specific stuff that like everybody had to sit in front of a bunch of 1x6s that they had draped across music stands. And all of us would come and stand in front of these 1x6s, and we'd have to practice. We'd have to play exercises together. Simple exercises. So, like, for example, we put on Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel, right? And we'd play this exercise. Here's my snare drum with a little practice pad on it, so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to move the mic out the way. You should still be able to hear me, but I want you to be able to see this because it's kind of the thing. All right, so this is what we do. And I'll go matched grip for this. A lot of times I like, when I'm playing snare and stuff like that, I like to do this thing called traditional grip, where the left hand stick lays nicely across on top of my ring finger, with the second, and in between the first and second knuckles right here just sits. You can't really hardly see what I'm doing, but it sits right on top there. Don't mind my middle finger. I'm not flipping you off. It's just how you have to hold it. But yeah, it just lays right across your ring finger like that. Then it sits in between your first and your thumb, right? And rests in there. And the pointer wraps around. So you've got this kind of thing going on, right? This is the deal. This is the grip. And you turn it like a doorknob, right? This is the traditional grip. It's usually up higher. You whip it down. It's not too late to whip it. But they didn't want us doing that back in the day. They wanted us doing matched grip, like where both hands do the same thing. And Ringo Starr made this pretty famous, you know, in the Beatles. He had this amended German thing he was doing. or it'd be down here, you know, like this. This is more of the German style. This is what you typically see a lot of drummers do. This is the main thing, is the matched grip. But we were working with this kind of deal. There's a couple different varieties of the matched. I often will go for the French style where the thumbs are up, right? And then use my fingertips more often and get my fingers really worked out. I don't like to do this as much, this up and down thing. I don't want to overuse my wrist muscles and stress anything out in here. So I try not to do too much of this and more of this, you know, and I will get my wrist involved, but there's like a third matched grip where they're not flat hands and they're not thumbs completely up. It's more of a halfway in between, like a 45-degree angle, and your motion is more in the forearm, coming down like this. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about grip. I'm just basically going over those real quick here. But this is what I am here to talk about. So, yeah, see, I go right back to the traditional automatically without thinking. I was teaching this exercise a little bit and different ways to approach it because it is so good. And I give credit to Jason for writing this. As I remember, he's the one who wrote this, and it's such a great one. It's so basic, so simple, and there's different ways you could arrange it. But you play 16th notes. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and then you keep doing that, but you leave out one of the 16th notes in each grouping of them, right? So when I say 16th notes, for those that may not be familiar, music is divided up into measures, right? You have a whole sheet of music, whole piece, song, whatever the case may be. The most typical way to divide it up is to divide it in groups of 4 notes at a time, right? We call that a measure or a bar of 4/4 time. 4 beats to the measure, and the quarter note is what is designated as the beat, right? That note value, the quarter note, is what is given the beat because it's 1/4 of a measure of 4/4 time. So even if your measure is 3/4 time, 3 quarter notes to the measure, the quarter note still gets the beat, right? It's still called a quarter note, even though there's only 3 of them per measure. That's just the way they devised the system. I'm not going to try to explain what they're doing or why, but any more than I did. So we're doing, how would I put this? Excuse me. I have to think for a second here. We're working on these exercises, and this one in particular, this Mississippi, as he would call it, you played 16th notes, and those would be taking a quarter note and subdividing it into 4 equal parts, right? So you have 4 quarter notes, each one subdivided into 4 equal parts. Therefore, you have 16 little notes that all fit in the space of a measure, right? So it takes up the same amount of time as just playing the 4 quarter notes. You just pack more notes in there. Instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, you play 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... See, it takes the same amount of time. I just broke it down to have more notes in each space, right? Not as much empty space in between the notes. So I'm just cutting it. It's like I'm slicing the pizza into more slices, right? There's still one pizza, just more individual slices, and each one is shorter or smaller. So 16th notes, we're working on those, keeping that subdivision. So 1 E and, I'm slowing it down not to play this fast. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and then we go 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E, and then back to the 16th notes. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E 2 E 3 E 4 E 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and let's go 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. So we would play that over and over and over again. And my goal for my students is to take that, and we're going to not just do that, we're going to do it where we lead it. We start from the left hand instead of the right. We could do it as paradiddles, right? The right, left, right, left, instead of just alternating back and forth all the time. There's different ways you could approach this same little pattern of playing here. And the idea is to play it 10 times in a row without stopping. At 60 beats per minute, that's, you know, when I take my metronome, and I have one here in my phone that I'll set. In fact, speaking of phone, okay, just wanted to make sure it wasn't, yeah, I had the thing off while I stream here. Metronome. I don't want people to be able to call me while I'm streaming. It's clicking out the time for me while I play. So I can hear, that's the quarter note pulse, right? So it should sound like this when I play with it. Here I go. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and a 1 E, a 2 E, a 3 E, a 4 E, a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 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 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. So that's the basic exercise, and it took me all of 40 seconds to play it, right? That run through on that was 40 seconds long. So I gave my student this, I gave him this challenge to play that exercise 10 times, right, in a row. And along with that, to play the paradiddle rudiment. It's one of the 40 basic rudiments as recognized by the Percussive Arts Society. It's a rudiment that's been around since Civil War days and before. I've still got to go find another copy of this, but the Civil War fife and drum manual from 1861, or excuse me, it was 1864. That's the year I think I have published. In there, it details examples of rudiments back that were being used as signals for the soldiers when they would move. They would play music to keep their spirits up while they're marching from location to location. You know, you kind of march many, many miles, then you're probably going to need some motivation to keep that up. And it wasn't Mississippi motivation necessarily, unless they were in Mississippi at the time when they're doing it. Then I suppose you could call it that. But in this case, it was you know, just a spirit de corps kind of stuff, and trying to get their spirits focused. And you know, they got to go do some pretty intensely violent stuff soon, and they're gonna feel like crap by the time they get there. So, got to do whatever we can to raise morale and make sure they win the fight. So, drummers played a very important part in that, and some of the principles that were used then are still used today. They're age-old principles. So, Moomin's here. What's up, man? We got all kinds of folks in here today. I haven't done a roll call. I might do that here toward the end, but I want to make sure I get through this while I have the time. So, this is what they were doing, right? They're working on these simple exercises, and one of those was the paradiddle, which I'm going to play for you real quick. I gave my student this thing to add on to his workout here. Musically, and I said I want you to play paradiddles for 10 measures, right? So let's say you're still at 60 beats a minute. 2, 3, 4. That's one measure. That's 2 measures, right? So I want him to finish 10 measures of paradiddle. So it would look like this: 1, 2, ready, go. Oh, and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. I think that was 10. See, that was the problem. I got a little mesmerized on that and I lost count. But the idea is that you're supposed to focus and not lose count. I'm a little tired. I'm gonna do it one more time, and this time I'm gonna count. Make sure I actually do it right. So this is the goal, right? That you play these exercises, and you're not only training your hands while you do it, you're supposed to be training your mind. I'm pointing up to my mind way up here. Trust that that's what I was doing. There isn't much there, I know, even when it's not on camera, you know. Or even when it is on camera is kind of what I meant to say. But here we go. 10 repetitions of paradiddles for 10 measures, right? So I'm really playing 40 paradiddles. Here I go now. 1, 2. Whoop. See, I messed up. Let's try that again. Focus. 1, 2. Here I go. Right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, didn't take me long to do that. You get through, you do that, plus the, there's only 9.8. Guys are cracking me up. Looks like Chunk is drumming. Nice. It's cracking me up, guys. And girls, or Z's, or Zins, or Zers, you know, any. So I'm working through this stuff with him, and I say, here's the goal. I want you to work on the Mississippi exercise 10 times, right? That's, I don't know, 16 notes, right? But 10 repetitions of the exercise. And then in between each one, you have a measure, right? So you'd finish one, you'd be doing the da, 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 da. That's that little dot, 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 dot is your transition thing to go to the next repetition of the exercise. So that's one more measure in between each exercise. And then you do another transition after you finish 10 repetitions of Mississippi, and you go into 10 measures of paradiddles. That ought to take you about 8.5 minutes, right? 8.5 minutes of solid practice. And I want him to do that 4 times a day. 4 times a day. So it'll give him over 40 minutes of practice every day on simple basic stuff for his hands. And that's just basic stuff for the hands. You will add other stuff to that basic workout. 1 week of that is going to be killer. 1 month is going to be even more amazing, right? As you get very specific about what you need to do to grow, right? That's my job as a teacher, is to let them know specifically what things can you do to grow, right? A couple things are going to happen in the process of that student working on this set of exercises here in the fashion that I prescribed. So he's going to get his hands, the muscles all throughout the fingers and hands, massively worked out by doing this that many times, right? That's a bunch, but it's not, I mean, it's not that much. It's a good goal to shoot for, right? And there's always the possibility that I allot for, you know, that they may not complete the assignment entirely, but I don't expect that. I expect for them to do it, right? I put it in my mind that no, they're going to accomplish this. I'm going to believe that they will do it, and give them every opportunity to see that reality come to fruition, right? Because when they accomplish it, when they do it, they're not only going to have their hands worked out, they're also going to have their brains worked out, because they've had to keep track of what they were doing and organize that in the moment while they're playing it. So you saw, like for me, I had to take a moment there and reset myself, make sure my head was in order, and then go ahead and play it properly and say, okay, that was 10 repetitions of paradiddles, right? Or 10 measures worth of paradiddles. And I counted it this time, so I know. So I had to make sure that my attention was focused on that to get it done correctly. I was just seeing Legionary put something down. Yes, drums were pivotal to the movement of large troops throughout history. They set pace and kept lines of men moving as the Romans in Gaul had a drummer die on the march. It was chaos. Oh, as one, I got you. Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. That's wild. See, yeah, there is an ancient history to drumming, and I've always thought it was interesting. I've talked about Jan Žižka before. He was a well-known Bohemian general, and I think it was in the 1600s. I could be wrong. I thought it was earlier than that, but I have to go back and look. And there's some neat things about that guy, but I won't get into that right now. Just suffice to say, this student got physical workout in the hands. They got mental workout from having to keep track of where they were at, focusing and paying attention to make sure they accomplished the exercise, and that they organized their time to make sure that they accomplish 4 repetitions per day, right? So they also get a sense of accomplishment. They get a sense of confidence surge when they complete it. When they finish this at the end of the week, they can say, like each day they get another boost when they've completed it, right? And when they, if and when some crazy thing happens that they don't, right, then they can stop and say, okay, why? And we will do that if that's the case when I show up, which I don't expect it to be. But if that's the case when I show up next week for lesson, and they've had pockets of time where that hasn't happened, then we're going to go to specifically look at those moments when that didn't happen and say, all right, what happened otherwise in that day? What's wrong with our mentality? What's wrong with our time organization that happened, right? Because for an 8.5 minute practice session to be done 4 times throughout your day, that's a very small commitment of time for practice. Very small. Most of the major professionals out there that are amazing players, they would sit and practice 8 hours a day. I knew a guy when I was in the military band, in the Army band, and I think he was of Cuban background. This guy was unbelievable. Like, he'd only been playing drums for a handful of years. He didn't grow up playing. He knew he didn't want to always be doing the gig he originally got into the military for. I think it was like working on helicopters or something. And so he worked 8 hours a day. This guy was older than me at the time. He was older than I am now, you know. I think he was in his late 30s, early 40s. And easily played 8 hours a day, practicing in depth, in specific practice. Smoking drummer. Unbelievable. He's probably got to be just a monster at it now. I can't even imagine. But he surpassed my abilities above and beyond. His syncopation capabilities were through the roof. Such a great drummer. Yeah, just amazing. And this guy put in the time. That's simply what it was. He was specific about what he wanted to be able to do, and he worked it out until he could do it smoothly in a gazillion different ways. That's what the professionals have done. They've put in a minimum of 10,000 hours to get to mastery level. Minimum 10,000, not just hours sitting and knocking on drums, but 10,000 specific hours of practice where they targeted certain elements of their playing and they got better at it. I'm going to show you one other exercise real quick that we were doing, or I was showing to him that you could do with this, right? Pull this back into frame. One other thing that you could do, I was trying to work this out, was, okay, so all the time the sticking is on this Mississippi thing is right, left, 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 right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, and then the basketball one, or the bicycle, that was the basketball one. The bicycle one would be like, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left. Then the next one, they call it vacation. Vacation, 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 vacation. That's right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. And then the last one is let's go to, right? Let's go to, let's go to, let's go to, let's go to, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left. That's the sticking. And then the last one, you're going right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left. I do it wrong. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. So that's how we would stick that when we're right hand leading that. We're imagining that we were just playing 16th notes the whole time, which are just going right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And so you just take out the appropriate one and keep going as if you didn't have anything missing, right? So I suggested, what if we do this from the left-hand lead? Left, right, 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 left, left, right, left, right, left, 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 right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, 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 left, right, left, right, 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 left, right, you know, that kind of stuff. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And I'm skipping the check pattern, what we call, is the check pattern, the straight 16ths. Or Mississippi, Mississippi is how Jason put that exercise together years ago. Again, this is Jason Heipel's exercise. He may have published it, put it somewhere. I don't know. I just remember it from years ago when I was a kid that he taught it to us. And so I give him full credit. That's his thing. But I make alterations to it and do different things with that basic structure, right? And it's a completely different exercise now. You know, it's all based off of that. But now we're doing things like paradiddles we can put into it. So that'd be a different set of sticking. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, 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 left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. That's how I would do if I want to make the paradiddles alternate back and forth. The paradiddle pattern would be right, left, right, right, and then left, right, left, left. So imagine that I took one of those out. Right, left, right, and I take the other right out. And then I go left, right, left, I take the other left out, right? You know, that are correct. That's how I'm moving that forward. Or the bicycle thing would instead be bicycle, 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 bicycle. The paradiddle thing is the right, left, right, right, or the left, right, left, left. So in the bicycle, I take out that, if I'm doing a right-handed paradiddle, I don't go right, left, right, right. I just go right, right, right. I have that pause in the middle because I'm not doing that left-hand part. And for the left-handed side, I'm going left, left, left. I'm taking that one right out of it. And so forth. So I alter the sticking to make it work with these different versions of it that I wanted to try. And so what I'm going to do for my student is continue to encourage them to take that basic structure and see how many different ways we could play it, what different things we could do to make it more interesting, you know, like different stickings, different ways of approaching it. But once he's got the structure for it, right, he could create things. He could come up with his own ideas about how he could play that, right? He could make up other names for each grouping. I think Jason just picked those because they sounded good and they were easy for us to remember. You know, like it's 20 something years later and I still remember Mississippi, basketball, bicycle, vacation, let's go to Mississippi, right? And I remember all of that. So like, I don't even have to look at this on a piece of paper at all. It's all here. It's all tucked in. So those specifics, when you're made to do that repetitively over and over and over again, will drill the thing in your mind that you want to drill there. I would apply this whole concept to personal behavior. If you've got personal behavior that's unbecoming of you, then you look at it and you say, okay, where am I doing wrong? Where am I doing something that I ought not? Right? And you have to prioritize. There's some things that probably outweigh others. Now, I'm going to speak about myself again a little bit here. Recently, I put something on Twitter in response to something that Dom put out. Dom mentioned, you know, he had put a question up and said, are you an inbox 0 kind of person or inbox 5,000, whatever, for your email? I posted a screenshot of like my 3 different email accounts, or I actually have more like 6 or 7. Probably more overall between, you know, Air Guard and all that other. Yeah, Rutro is right, dude. I posted a little screenshot of just the email inboxes. And yes, I made Dom's anxiety have anxiety. It got diagnosed with anxiety. So I just showed those 3, and each one was over or near 10,000 or more. You know, I think one of them had said 11,000. Now, as that may be, my steady in time inbox and my actually the steady in time one's got a lot of junk that I've got to excise from it. It's not as bad as the others, but the Big Drum Bear email, that one I keep pretty clean because it's fresh, it's new, and I've kept a lot of junk out of there. So my inbox is not loaded. My inbox is actually clean. I don't have any I don't have any unread messages in there, right? But most of what's in there, yeah, I've had, between all my different inboxes, I'm near like 30,000 odd emails or more that are unread. And the vast, vast, vast majority, I'm talking like 99.9% of them are junk that I just haven't stopped, you know, the subscription to or whatever that I got on. I can't remember all the different reasons, but it's over years of different junk like that. So if a new thing comes up, I will see it. I will get notifications. So you can still email me, folks. You know what I mean? And especially the bigdrumbear@gmail.com. I'll see that easy, you know, because that's actually clean. But I've got other ones for different purposes, and a lot of those boxes are kind of overblown. And I have to deal with that. But I do it a little bit at a time. But again, it's not my first priority. I have a bunch of other stuff that is a more leading priority than that. So, yeah, I'm working on those things. It's just funny to think about. Yeah, you need to prioritize what thing you see that's going to be like the most important to focus on, right? The most important to excise and deal with that first, right? Get the most important thing out of the way first. So you have to learn that skill of prioritization. Which thing needs to be focused on first? Sometimes you can do multiple at a time, but I'd start small, right? Aim low enough. Be willing to aim low enough. Sometimes it comes down to a core personality trait that needs to change, right? You need to do little things that help begin to shift that. And the things that are symptoms of that, right? A disorganized mind is, you know, mailboxes at 30,000 emails is a symptom of disorganization in administrative stuff. So you start with little things that you can control, right? Little details that you can get better at, like putting into your phone's calendar, I have to do these things at these times, right? Putting into a piece of paper on your laptop. I unplugged this yesterday. I need to reset the audio in OBS to the USB mixer board so that when I start my show, people can hear, right? Things like that. Or, hey, I had this all unplugged. I haven't replugged in my laptop. I'm at about 5% battery power. We're going to lose the stream unless I get it plugged in. All of these things are kind of things that they're important to get a handle on, right? You will still make mistakes. It's still going to happen. However, when you do, you can look at what you did and then immediately think of a solution to it. Immediately say, okay, how can I stop that from happening again next time? And there's a series that was on USA for a long time. I think it's still out there. It was called NCIS. Some of you have seen that. Naval Criminal Investigative Service. And on that show, the guy that's in charge, the boss of everybody, Jethro Gibbs, he's a tough ex-Marine. You know, of course, there's no such thing. Once a Marine, always, right? But intense dude. And he's very no-nonsense. And he tells his crew, don't apologize when you screw up. You know, it's a sign of weakness, as he puts it. Yep, Gibbs. Y'all know. Y'all know. So Gibbs says, don't apologize. It's a sign of weakness. You know, tells all his people that work under him. And he says, just tell me that you're not going to do it again. You know, it won't happen again. That's more important to him than saying you're sorry, right? Because saying you're sorry doesn't fix it. It's a platitude, in a sense. Like you're trying to appease. You know, and people genuinely can say sorry and mean it and want to deal with other people's emotions. He's saying that's not what I value, right? For me, I don't value you appeasing my emotions. I value you recognizing that you erred and that you're going to do something about that and make sure it doesn't happen again to the best of your ability and continue to work on that. That's more important to him. Changed behavior than appease my feelings. That doesn't help people function better. So I always thought that was super important. That was super cool to think about. Be sure in your relationships with people when you make errors. Be sure with yourself first, right? When you err, that you're honest about it and you tell yourself, instead of wallowing in self-pity or condemning yourself and saying, I suck, I'm awful, you say, no. Here's where I screwed up. Here's what I'm going to do to change it. Make a plan, see it through. And I'm saying this to myself as much as I am to the rest of you. And you've got clear examples in today's show of why it's important for me to set it to myself. So funny. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here because I want to get to work here. I got dogs to walk and all that fun, happy stuff. So until next time, engage your heart, engage your mind, engage your body too. But I said it all backwards. Know what you're going to say and then say it. Maybe write it down on your computer. All that fun stuff. Seek to serve the ultimate purpose above all, guys. I love you. Have a great day. Peace, Bears.